Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the engine rebuild of the Land Rover Series 2 1/4 diesel. What we're going to be doing is looking at the engine block. We're going to be honing and cleaning that all out, get the coolant cleaned out and ready to go for the next pieces and parts. So thank you guys for liking and subscribing and following along. This video I kind of did a little bit different. I kind of let the camera run and then you could kind of see as I'm working, and I did some voiceovers, which I never did before. So hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm prepping the area here for me to start spraying and cleaning out the coolant holes in this. But I put a tarp around here just to catch any water that's spraying all over the place. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but just better off if I don't do it. So then I put some t-shirts down in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some masking tape and mask off everything around except for the holes that I'm going to be spraying into and cleaning. So we'll see if that'll, if I'll be able to avoid getting any of this all wet and everything down inside here. But everything will be cleaned up, and I already cleaned up the surface a little bit. So I just want to get all these holes cleaned out, so then cleaned out and flushed out. So let's see how it goes. So I got it all taped off. I got the holes that I'm going to be spraying in. All clean, well, not cleaned, but I got them all. I poked them with a poke, with this. Poke this down inside all of them to try to loosen up the whatever dirt's in there. And now I'm going to take some purple power that I have here in a spray bottle, and I'm going to spray it down into the holes and let it sit there for a while. Okay, I'm getting creative with the hose now. So I got a piece of hose connected to the end of our normal hose coming over. Then I have a little piece of hose that we use when we're camping, whenever we have water at campsites. And on the end, I put a compression fitting for a compressor, like to put your fittings on and off or whatever. So this fits in there perfectly down inside these holes. So I'm going to use this to hose out the case itself down through the holes that are there. So we'll see how this goes. Well, I just got done spraying it all down inside the engine block. Actually, it did great job. It came out with a lot of dark lump stuff of dirt and grime, and a lot of rusty metal dirt stuff in there after I sprayed the purple power down in there, and I let it sit in there for an hour or so, and kept spraying it and spraying it and spraying it, so it always get plenty of cleaner inside of it with the spray bottle. Just kind of went like this, sprayed down into each of the holes. And then the hose with the nozzle on the end worked perfect. I had my son turn the hose on and off as I was going from one to the next, and just watched it come out of the hole down there and just get lighter and lighter every time. It was real dark brown and turned to white and clear or whatever. So the passages are now clean inside the block. So now I'm going to take the tape off here. Then I can give all this some more good cleaning. I cleaned the top off, took all the tape off. So the next step is to hone the cylinders. And we're not really going to hone them as in machine them. We're just going to take the glaze off the inside of the pistons, inside of the bores. But if you look here, if you can see there, there's literally no, you can get a good shot of it there. There's no crosshatch whatsoever on the cylinder walls, on all 4 of them. Even though it kind of looks like that, there is kind of a, maybe there might be some, but that actually isn't. That's just from the piston rings bouncing up and down, coming up and down the whole time. You can see there's some piston marks inside there, some where the rings were just kind of hitting and sitting. And there's some spots, you can see them spots over there. I think that's kind of some of the spots where it was sitting for so long and not moving and rotating the engine. And then there's a few scratches. You could see them there on the side where just the piston rings were coming up and down the whole time. So what I did to prep up this so I can hone it is I took a t-shirt, if you could see down there, I wrapped the crank down there with a t-shirt, with a couple t-shirts. I wrapped it around and I spun it by hand and kind of just wrapped the t-shirt around there and to cover up everything so nothing goes down inside. But the honer is going to go up to here and come down. I'm going to show you. But here's the 3-arm. This is the one I've used it before in other engines and it seems to work just fine. I don't even know what the grid is on it. But we'll put that down inside there, go up and down a few times. I'll turn the camera on when I'm doing it and show you how I hone out a cylinder here. So I'm going to put, maybe I'll put another shirt down at the bottom of that just to double check it over to make sure nothing gets down inside there. So I'm going to get this ready and set it up so then we can start honing. In order to keep stuff from going down into that hole, I'm going to cut some cardboard into a circle and see if I can stuff that down in there. Oh yeah, there you go. So now that piece of cardboard goes the whole way down to the bottom and covers the t-shirt up.
Okay, so what we're going to start off here is with a little bit of 3-in-1 oil. I'm putting it down into the bores, just kind of swishing it around in there, squirting a little bit. And then I'm just doing this for the first time to do the actual honing. I'm just putting a little oil onto the grinding blocks because they're dry and they've been sitting for a long time. So I thought I'd put a little bit on there. So here you can see the 3-in-1 oil. But what you want to do is a real light oil. You don't want to do a heavy oil. So then you pull your arms together and kind of go up and down in a steady pace. Don't put the drill too fast, but just enough to keep it a steady pace and try to keep a smooth up and down motion as you're doing it. So back to the oil, you don't want a heavy oil like 30 weight or motor oil or anything, which I've tried in the past and it doesn't work very good. So you want a thin oil so it'll collect the little particles as it's going around grinding and honing the inside of the piston. So now I just did the worst practices right there. Whenever you go to pull the honer out, you make sure you pull the legs in with it when you take them out. So now I'm cleaning out the inside of the bore. I noticed that the oil turned from a clear color to a gray color.
It's starting to get a little bit in there. Clean up around inside there.
So I'm wiping out the inside and then I'm going to go about and clean it up with some brake clean and things like that. Then do it again. Then put some more 3-in-1 oil in there, hone it up and down, and clean it up on the inside. But before I use the honer again, I'm going to actually clean it in some soapy water. Soapy clean, hot soapy water so it'll get all the particles off it, which I'm showing right now. Just a little shake in there, swish it around, and it cleans off all the particles. Then I usually take a towel and just kind of dab it off to dry it off to do it again.
You can see I have the first 3 done and the 4th one isn't done yet. You can see it's got a crosshatch down inside there now. And here's the old one before I do it, number 4. You can see there's no crosshatch at all. And then here, you see once you clean it up, it makes it a lot nicer inside the bore as you go around. What I think I'm going to do, this is 3 passes that I did. I did 1 pass with the oil and then cleaned it all out, cleaned my brushes, cleaned the stone in the soapy water, then did it 3 times, 3 times, and 3 times. Then I'm going to do this one 3rd time. Now what I'm going to do is this has an adjuster on it right here. And I'm going to give this a couple turns just to tighten up the springs and do 1 final pass to all 4 of them. So that's what I'm going to work on next.
Okay, this is the final inspection. I'm just kind of looking down in the bores to see if they're good, and this is one of many times I've spent time staring down into those bores to see if they were good or bad or how much more needed to be done. So 4 passes, I think we're plenty good on that. So this is going to be kind of with the final cleaning of the bores themselves. I'm going to use a little bit of PB Blast or liquid wrench or some type of oil to go into the inside of the bores so they don't rust as they're sitting there as I'm working on other pieces and parts of the engine. So brake clean is pretty good, but you want to have a little bit of oil on there just so it doesn't get a coating of rust on the inside. But the pattern's looking good, and I think we're ready to move on to the next part. So as I was wiping it out, I was getting a fresh towel and making sure the towels themselves didn't have any metal chips on them or pieces and parts or shavings or the gray color on it. So they're all coming out clean as I was spraying. So I think the bores are good now. Okay, so the real tedious part is now going to be scraping and cleaning the head gasket surface or the top surface. And I did take a straight edge, and it was pretty flat all across the top of the block. So I don't think that would really be a concern or anything. So I'm good with that. So I speed up the film here a little bit to get the excitement, the full fun of scraping and cleaning of a head gasket area. So I've been working away around and cleaning out the bores and checking inside of the coolant pieces and parts. Use some lacquer thinner. Excuse me standing right in front of the camera there. And I didn't really think the camera was rolling, or I forgot about it. I don't even know. But anyway, so I used some lacquer thinner on a towel and kind of cleaned and polished, scraped off any high parts, pieces of parts from the old head gasket or any sealant that might have been in there or anything. So I just kind of worked my way around the head and its surface itself and polished and cleaned it so there wouldn't be nothing, absolutely anything on the top of the head. So I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, but I'm tripping. I'm tripping upstairs and stuff.
So the next step is I'm putting a little bit of brake clean down in where the lifters are, or the taffets, just so to make sure there's nothing that's maybe dirt or metal that are sitting inside there. So I just kind of sprayed it down in there, and also I sprayed some into the bolt holes, all where the head bolts are going to be going into. I took some compressed air and then covered it up with a towel, all the bolt holes or the head bolts holes, to clean out all the oil and gunk and dirt that's inside all of them. And also did down into where the lifters are, just kind of blew air down into there as well, just to try to clean everything out. And whenever I do the head bolts, I want them to go in there smooth and not have anything onto the threads that'll mess up the torque values or anything. So I just kind of sprayed the carb cleaner in there, compressed air. It took out all the dirt and it was spraying everywhere once you got that compressed air in there. Since I had the head off, I noticed that the oil filler was missing the bolt that holds the oil filler in. So I found a bolt that'll fit in there, and then since the bolt was missing for so long that the threads were all rusted. So I used a tap, a little bit of liquid wrench or PV blast, and just cleaned up the threads, and now there's a bolt holding it steady and in place. All right, put a little anti-seize on there just so it doesn't get messed up again. Grab your bolt, tighten her on in there, and make sure every time you tighten a bolt that holds something down, make sure you shake it real good to make sure it's not going to move. Okay, so I think we're about done with the block. With the top end, you want to stand there, maybe get a little contemplation going and think about what you just did, and that you maybe accomplished something, but you don't really know, so you just kind of stare at it. So the next step is we're going to work on getting the towels out from underneath, and we'll get the towels underneath and we'll start cleaning up the crank a little bit. As I'm down underneath there taking off the towels, I'm just kind of spinning the crank and taking the towels and the piece of cardboard that I had underneath there, and it seemed to work pretty good and kept the crank clean. But I did notice that, or not notice, but I kind of thought, you know what, maybe I should put a little bit of oil on the main bearings. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of turning the engine by hand, and I'm dripping oil down onto the bearings on because it's a 3-bearing engine, so the first one and the middle one and the back one, and just kind of spinning it, rotating it. It seemed to got a little bit easier to spin as I was dripping the oil in, just so it didn't run dry, or maybe I got any carb cleaner in there or something. So I just wanted to make sure it was okay before I went any further. So just a couple of drips here and there, kept spinning it. So I was rotating it. I also dripped oil down onto the big end of the pistons area, or the crank. I just kind of dripped oil on it just so it had a nice coating on it. As I was working on other pieces of the engine, I didn't want anything to be sitting there dry and maybe rust or anything. So just a little dab will do ya as you spin the crank around by hand.
All right, so now the block is done. It's cleaned, honed, and it's ready to go. So the next step is probably going to be either the head or the piston rings. So we'll probably do the piston rings next or whatever. The pistons, clean that up and check those out. So thank you guys for liking and subscribing and following. I'll catch you on the next one.